Hey everybody, welcome to the Daily Space Weather Show. We've got a little uptick in the X-ray profile. It's coming from that northeastern limb up there in your upper left. Looks like yet more sunspots are about to rise over the east. We're taking things back to basics for a minute today. These are 24-hour videos from the SDO. And you can see that prominence that we showed at the end of yesterday's video making its way out at the bottom of your screen. Right there it goes. And there was a large CME associated with that, a coronal mass ejection. Let's take a brief look at the northern region. Again, that area up in the upper left there, that would be the new active region rising there. It has single-handedly raised the X-ray profile here before even rising into view. Let's pan down a bit here for the, I guess that's tilt down. Yeah, there you go. There's the equatorial view in 304 angstroms ionized helium, and we'll get back to that imagery here in a moment. First, sunspots. And we're going to come back to sunspots. This is just a brief overview. Sunspot number has dropped below the recent average. Here's colorized magnetogram from SDO. Again, expecting at least one or two more sunspots to rise here shortly over that eastern limb on your screen left. Let's take a brief look at volcanoes. While we're on the subject, Reykjanes has calmed down. So last night it was correct. Looked like it was ceasing the eruption, and indeed it has. Although more eruptive activity could occur under the town of Grindavik. So here are the rest of the volcanoes that are erupting. I'm not going to just read them off, as I find that distasteful. Luotobe is erupting in a spectacular fashion, though. Also Semeru. Also Dacono. Popocatépetl exploding, 22,000-foot ash plume there. And there are the rest of your volcanic activities in Central and South America. We'll also take a brief look at earthquakes. There are the past 90 days. Once again, courtesy of volcanodiscovery.com. And here are the 5 and greater magnitude quakes courtesy of USGS. Starting out, the list is a 5.0 at Greece. That was at 5:20 this morning. And then a lull in activity until Japan had a 5.0. That was at 9:42. And then only 6 minutes later, at 9:48, Fiji had a 5.0. That was at extreme depth there, over 580 kilometers below the surface. Indonesia also had a 5.1, and that closes out our list. That was at 18:03 Universal Time tonight. And before we get into some space weather stats, back to that equatorial view in 304 angstroms SDO. And we do have an increased likelihood of large solar flares now right up here. And let's take a brief look at the southern polar region as well. You should see that prominence blasting off down there right at the beginning of the video. Again, this is another 24-hour Solar Dynamics Observatory video. We've got some major filaments, especially on the eastern portion of the closest star as well. We'll cover that later in the video. Next, let's take a look at some stats. So the 10.7 centimeter radio flux is now at 180 solar flux units. There it is in the 1 year graph. 180 is the radio flux number. And you can see how proportional that is to sunspot number. The red line is a sunspot number. The black line is the radio flux for the past year. And Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard, not forecasting any geomagnetic storms or unrest. So space weather remains calm for the foreseeable future. Next, we'll get to Earth's magnetic moment from space. Here's our geospace magnetosphere movie depicting the last 4 hours of magnetohydrodynamic pressure. It shows to about 12 Earth diameters the approximate size of Earth's magnetosphere. Did you know Jupiter's magnetosphere is so huge that if it was visible to the naked eye, it would be the size of the full moon from Earth? Again, geomagnetically calm conditions on Earth at the moment. The past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from the ground depicted here are ground magnetic perturbations map. it shows magnetic flux density at the ground level. And this is good for aurora chasers, by the way. It will show you the most likely place to see the aurorae, telluric currents, and so on. KP index at 1.33. Again, it is geomagnetically calm. And here are our solar wind spacecraft. The ACE is first. Solar wind density there at about 3 protons per cubic centimeter and about 351 kilometers per second. At the Discover, a little denser and a lot faster. So about 5.5 protons per cubic centimeter at the Discover. Solar wind speed there, 465 kilometers per second. GOES magnetometers are fairly smooth here. Here are the past 7 days, just to show you a little larger representative sample. Some larger variations showing up in the past few days, but it is still geomagnetically calm. And let's move on to our top view ecliptic plane field plot. So Earth remains in a North Pole heliospheric sector, shown there in green. No changes expected. Well, we may be in a South Pole current sheet by tomorrow. So the South Pole magnetic sector may arrive as early as tomorrow. I suspect we'll still be in a North Pole sector by tomorrow's daily space weather show. Make sure you tune in to find out if the forecast was correct. Here's our line of sight field plot. Solar B field depicted in blue, north and south polar fields in green and red, respectively, and the photosphere magnetism shown in grayscale. One of the best series of images you could see for the past 4 days there in terms of showing you a lot about what's going on the closest star, and lots of magnetic organization happening on the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk. That's what you'd expect with so many sunspots. Next, our coronal hole line of sight plot, and mostly North Pole-oriented coronal holes, but we do have some South Pole coronal holes rotating in. Let's stop at the last image and move to the SDO. So over here, we've got some South Pole coronal holes. The rest of these are north. So that's the scenario. And let's move on to sunspots. And I've said it before, I'll have to say it again. If you're mad about sunspots, if each sunspot makes you mad, or if you feel the desire to pretend like there are less sunspots than there really are, we definitely recommend that you seek psychological counseling. They're doing wonderful things at mental institutions nowadays, and if you've found yourself in a cult, become self-aware and look at how silly you look. If you're mad at sunspots, seek psychiatric assistance. Anyway, sunspot number is currently at about 137, something like that. 137 sunspots is the current sunspot number, according to Rob, the Royal Observatory of Belgium. Now, like I said, we've got some additional groups here that have risen since yesterday's video, so at least 2 that haven't been named yet, it looks like. And expect some more by the time we do tomorrow's Daily Space Weather Show. Let's take a look at some fantastic views here from the SDO. So here we've put together the magnetogram plus 171 angstroms 60-minute running difference to really highlight the active regions and show you the way the iron aligns to the magnetic fields in the lower corona, which is what's depicted by the 171 angstroms wavelength. Fantastic imagery there. Let's switch to the SDO continuum and 171 angstroms 60-minute running difference. Not too bad. And again, you can see multiple likely active regions going to rise here in the east. And here we've dropped the 171 angstroms to show just continuum by itself. So some quite sizable sunspots here, but the magnetic complexity not all that high right now. So we don't have that much magnetic shear. The 2 most likely spots to see a large solar flare, folks, are going to be right down here and right up here. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it because we cite facts on this channel. Zero nonsense, zero propaganda, zero fraud, no pseudoscience, facts. Next, energetic particles we ain't gotten on the GOES proton flux here is at base levels. X-ray flux, like I said, it came up a little bit. It's because of that active region rising in the northeast. Background flux has increased to about a C1.5. Let's take a look at 131 angstroms raw imagery plus the 94 angstrom 60-minute running difference. And let me just reiterate, the most likely place to see a large solar flare is now, number 1 is down here in the southwest, number 2 is up here in the northeast. So those two opposite corners are where to look. Those are likely to be our most active sunspots in the coming 24 hours. Next, we'll show what's going on with stars overhead. Yes, a star chart. Because some people might consider that space weather, so there you go. That's what's going on overhead Lehigh Valley right now. And there is a very conspicuous constellation that just rose over the horizon a few hours ago here, Betelgeuse. Part of the constellation Orion, Betelgeuse known as Alpha Orionis, the brightest star in that constellation. And we'll get back to that here in a minute. First, a solar system forecast. So, first of all, here's where things are today. And let's advance this 1 week. Here's where things will be in a week. Earth is moving around to the lonely side of the solar system, the side which contains 0 gas giants. Next, our astronomy photo of the day, and this is, once again, the constellation of Orion. So if we scroll up here a little bit, you see the 3 belt stars right there. And multiple different nebulae are visible. And like we've said many times on the channel, the belt stars actually show you Betelgeuse. So if you want to see the largest object, the largest single object visible to the naked eye, just make a straight line, draw a perpendicular line from the buckle of the belt, and that perpendicular line will point right at Betelgeuse, the red supergiant. Massive, cool, yet star that does quite a lot of activity, a lot of emissions, a lot of stellar spots do occur on red supergiant stars. Great imagery there of the Orion Nebula. It's the astronomy photo of the day, apod.nasa.gov. Shout out to Michele Guzzini. apod.nasa.gov is where to check that out yourself if you like. And let's move on to coronal mass ejections. So here's the rundown of today's CMEs. You can see one coming out of the north, one coming out of the southeast. And of course, right at the beginning of the video, one coming out of the south. That was the prominence that we showed on yesterday's video. A big prominentiary loop erupted. Let's show the LASCO C2 and C3. Here we go. And you may be wondering if those are earthly directed CMEs. And I'm wondering the same thing, so I'm going to do the analysis as I make the video. So since about midday, it's been a little bit calmer in terms of coronal mass ejection activity. Let's take a look at our custom coronagraphs. Here is SDO 304 angstroms plus the LASCO C2 in red and C3 in blue. Now, so far, I don't see any plasma motions on the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk that make me think that there are earthly directed CMEs, but let's look in a little bit closer. And I don't think those are earthly directed. Here we've dropped the C3 and added the 193 angstroms SDO difference imagery of 60 minutes. No, I don't think those are earthly directed CMEs. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Sometimes people ask me what I'm thinking, and the answer is absolutely nothing. To quote Lao Tzu, a thought in the mind of a warrior is like a lightning bolt. It's there, and then it's gone. If you're reading my mind, please stop. It's a short, boring novel. Anyway, there's the full disk view, and let's zoom in a little bit closer here since these wavelengths are pretty sweet. Again, that's 304 angstroms, the raw imagery, plus with a 60-minute running difference of 193 angstroms. Shows some great depth in the solar corona. Which brings us to filaments. Since they show up good in those wavelengths, let's take a look at those now from Cerro Tololo, Chile. So there you go. Now this filament here has already gotten a name. That's called the Maria something or other filament. I don't think we have her last name, but follow us over on Twitter, x.com/smashomash. If you want to name filaments, just follow the hashtag #NameThatFilament. If you want to name filaments after your friends, your foes, or even yourself, just tag me, enter the hashtag #NameThatFilament, and let us know which one you'd like to name. None of these have names except for this one right here. So this one could get a name, this one here could get a name, that one there could get a name. This one wouldn't hurt to name it. I tend to name them on the east side as those are more likely to become earthly directed CMEs, our favorite kind. And here's the colored imagery. You can see great density there in that southeastern filament. It is really huge and really dense, and we can't even see the other end of it yet. So that's pretty interesting, wouldn't you say? And before we get to bonus features, let's take a look at the past couple of hours from the GOES 16 SUVI. And by the way, thanks for tuning in to the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. That's the past 2.5 hours. And like I said before, this area right up here is certainly watchworthy. So solar flare watch right down here and right up here. That said, let's get to bonus features. First thing we'll cover is satellite charging hazards. At the moment, it's smooth sailing. No internal or surface charging hazards for satellites. GOES electron flux here, still at quite low levels. That's the past 3 days. And there's the past year, and you can see we're having the longest electron flux shortage here in quite a while. I think of the entire year, actually. A big trough in the electron flux. It has been a shortage of space weather as the sun continues to be a plasma miser. The sun just holding on to plasma, being a little bit stingy with it for the solar system. Don't expect that to continue as we ramp up and up and up to solar maximum, which we are expecting sometime around September or October of this year. Next, the relativistic electron forecast model. That's NOAA's forecast, expecting a slight dip there. No arguments from me there. We need some space weather to start to get some higher levels of electron flux. Next, we'll show the layer where it's measured. How about the F-layer? What do you say? Just kidding, folks. It's a space weather dictatorship. The F-layer is located at about 300 kilometers of altitude, and here it is in vibrational frequency. And it's going to be quite calm. There has been no space weather to speak of for an extended period because of El Sol, the plasma miser. So that's what's shaken at the bridge between Earth and space. And if that's all Greek to you, don't worry. We also show the anomalygram, anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. So not a lot of anomalous stuff going on in the ionosphere. I said it before, I'll say it again. If you're hoping we'll forecast doomsday, well, that data is not going to support your doomsday hypothesis. Moving right along to the whole atmosphere model, or WHAM. Just wake me up before you go, 'cause I'll be showing total electron content on the left. Wake me up before you go, showing you maximum usable frequency on the right. So that's what's going on. Electron content and anomaly on the left, maximum usable radio frequency on the right. We'll close out space weather with the latest high-res images. So that's what's going on. That's what approximately 137 sunspots looks like. And it's time to allow our viewers to get involved with the channel. Of course, what's great about YouTube is that it's interactive, period, right? So go interact with Eugene the Philosopher. If you've never seen the channel, go check it out. Mr. Bagashov, my pal from Minsk, otherwise known as the Monotone from Minsk. Go check out the channel if you haven't. It's got some refreshing views on some things. And of course, we don't agree on everything, but again, go check it out. He's the largest contributor to our channel. Shout out to Eugene, and thanks. And by the way, if you'd like to ask him a particle physicist question, head to smashomash.com/forum. If you scroll down, you'll find the General Science Forum right there. Click on that, and you'll be able to find the Ask a Particle Physicist segment. It's pinned to the top. So if you want to ask a particle physicist a question, make sure you submit it by Wednesday night. On Thursday morning, I submit them to Eugene, and then we air them on Fridays. So watch our daily space weather videos from each Friday if you want to see the Ask a Particle Physicist segment. Thanks to everybody who's contributed. Smashomash.com/forum is our free forum where you, too, can get involved. And let's move to meteorology, because a lot of talk about cold. Let's show you some real cold. There's the coldest place on Earth. Can anybody guess where it is? I'll give you a minute. You want to guess where that's located? Type a comment. And I'll give a few seconds here for you to do so. That's the coldest place in the world. It's negative 48.5 degrees Celsius, which is negative 55 degrees Fahrenheit, folks. Do you know where it is? Do you think it's Antarctica? Maybe you think it's Greenland. Maybe you think it's Chicago. I don't know, but it's not any of those places. It's actually Siberia. So that's probably a pretty good guess. I mean, a lot of people might have said Siberia. I don't know. I don't really care. I just gave you the opportunity to do it. So cheers. Thanks to everybody who's left a comment. And if you fail to leave a comment or press the like button, how dare you? Tisk, tisk. And thanks to everybody who has supported the channel over the past 6 years of us producing, it's just the world's most comprehensive daily space weather content. No big deal. Anyway, let's get to the wind patterns of planet Earth. There are the surface winds of the east. Shout out to our viewers from this side of the planet. Here are the jet streams of the east. Shout out to our viewers from the central world. There are your jet streams. Here are your surface winds. Surface winds of the western world, aka the Americas, shown here. Windy conditions on the Great Lakes, also the Gulf of Mexico, and both oceans. And yeah, here are the jet streams for the west. Next, clouds and fog over the Americas as we zoom in closer and closer to the U.S. weather. That is what's going on in the eastern Pacific and western Atlantic. There you go. And we're going to do a close-up of this series of storms that have been moving up the East Coast. Still producing some snow for New England. That's our shortwave radiation map. It depicts clouds and fog even when it's too dark to use the visible satellite. Next, our windy.com map, and check it out. It's only 34 degrees Fahrenheit in Houston, folks. That is pretty cold. Parts of Louisiana there at freezing temperatures. And I'm talking the southern part of Louisiana here. If you go up into Canada, you've got temperatures at negative 11 Fahrenheit there. Expecting a high of only like 25 degrees Fahrenheit tomorrow in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. There's your windy.com map depicting temperature. Windy.com, they've got a free mobile app if you'd like to download that. Feel free. Here's our weather.gov map. And we've got a bunch of purple down there. Those are hard freeze warnings for most of southern Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia. Dag. Anyway, that's a lot of weather warnings once again. Not as many as a couple of days ago. But lots of weather warnings, mainly of the cold type variety. Also some winter storm warnings there in the northern Rockies. We talked about it yesterday. Here comes some forecasts. First, the GFS 72-hour pressure and precipitation model. So some massive pressure gradients there forming along the Rockies. Also some freezing rain expected in Oregon and Washington, especially. Also some in Idaho. And some more freezing rain coming to, looks like, Tennessee also. 72-hour GFS pressure and precipitation forecast is that. Next, the accumulated positive snow depth change in inches, same model, GFS 72-hour. We show 3-day forecasts because they're accurate. So, yeah, some more snow coming to eastern Pennsylvania. Nice. I'm always delighted about that. And finally, the temperature anomaly in degrees Celsius. Same model, GFS 72-hour. As the cold spell continues here, especially in the north-central part of the U.S., temperatures remaining like 16 degrees Celsius below normal over like a third of the country. That's on the cool side. Anyway, tropicaltidbits.com is where we get those forecasts from. tropicaltidbits.com. Shout out to Dr. Levi Cohen. And here come lightning maps. So there are the past about 10 hours. Florida seeing some lightning as well as the southwestern Atlantic Ocean. And let's check for real-time lightning strikes courtesy of lightningmaps.org. So some strikes there off the coast of Florida. Looks like no terrestrial strikes at the moment. Here we'll zoom out to show the full map. We'll close out the video with U.S. Doppler radar, clouds and fog, and water vapor. First, the full 50-state view, as more precipitation shows up in the Pacific Northwest as the snow makes its way out of New England. Maine actually looking like it's getting some heavy rain there. Must be a huge temperature gradient right near the Canada-Maine border. Anyway, here's clouds and fog for the same region, the lower 48. More cold air blasting down from Canada. There's a great view of that on the water vapor map. A huge Nike symbol there making its way across Arkansas as we speak. A huge Nike swoosh. Hopefully they won't sue those states for copyright infringement. Here's your recap. U.S. Doppler radar showing vertical motion from ground-based Doppler radar systems. Space-based systems showing the infrared radiation emitted by clouds and fog in all directions. Yeah, that's how radiation works. And here's a different band of infrared radiation depicting water vapor as in all of it. So that's where we'll close this thing out. Thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back. Meanwhile, I'm going back to the bunker. Whoa!